All right. Well, let's get started. This is a pretty important issue that we uncovered with in regards to the databases at the Secretary of State's office. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a prepared statement, and then if there's any questions at the end, we'll go ahead and take them. So the problem that we're coming across today started when we became alarmed at the number of non-citizens asking to be dismissed from jury duty. In a meeting that we had amongst our supervisors, we talked about the various problems that we had with low juror turnout. Approximately 40% that are sent notices for jury duty actually are qualified and show up. That's just 40%. In trying to come up with a solution, we came upon the problem of an unreasonable number of non-citizens that present their green card for an excuse to be dismissed. Now, each year, the Michigan Secretary of State's office compiles a list of residents in each county using people that hold a Michigan driver's license or Michigan State ID. Now, let's keep in mind, this doesn't rely on voter registration. You don't have to be a registered voter to be on a jury list. Now, what are the qualifications? One, you must be a U.S. citizen. That's the first one. Resident of the county that you may serve, be at least 18 years old, mentally and physically capable of serving, or no disqualifying felony record. Now, we realized over the last 4 months, over 200 individuals had requested to be dismissed from our jury pool because of non-citizenship. So the thought occurred to me, how this is possible that non-citizens were even given the opportunity to be in a jury pool. The list comes to us from the Secretary of State's office. This has caused our office to have an unreasonable amount of bureaucratic time to process and remove people from jury duty that never should have been on the list to begin with. Now, before I get into this, there's an important note that you need to know. With the jury pool system itself, there should never be that possibility of non-citizens getting into the jury pool, because the only way they have getting out of the jury service is that they tell us through self-reporting process. Otherwise, we would have no idea that they are not citizens. However, if they self-report that they are not a U.S. citizen, there does not appear to be a system in place for the Social Security office to remove them. It is not until they are called for jury service that this gets flagged, not by the system itself, but by self-reporting. So I ask an even more alarming question. How many of the past have been too afraid to report, or don't even know better and have served on a jury? This could compromise the entire judicial system. I spoke with Chief Judge Biernatt about the possibility of non-citizens slipping through the system and serving on a jury panel. And we're both very concerned about this. The other thing to note, this represents just 70% of those that were summoned. So in all reality, those that did not respond likely have a higher probability of being non-citizens. So the numbers we're about to show you are incredibly conservative. So what happened after this is very stunning. During this meeting, it occurred to me that maybe we should cross-check these names against the qualified voter file, the QVF. It just so happens one of our supervisors, Monica Rittner, oversees both departments, the jurors as well as elections. So I asked Monica to take these names and put them up against the QVF. I'm going to have Monica just talk a little bit about what she did.
Thank you, Clerk Forlini. As Clerk Forlini was directing me to begin this process of comparing the data, I could tell by the look on his face, which I have seen several times in the past, that we may actually be on to something. For some time, Clerk Forlini has tried to determine whether non-citizens exist on the voter rolls. This appeared to be a potential solution that no one had ever considered, comparing the jury file against the qualified voter roll, the QVF. Our election staff looked up the files in the database just as we had recently done, where we had removed 300 deceased voters over the age of 100. So we'd just gone through a similar process. Our election staff looked up these files. The sample that was researched were individuals from September 5th, 2025 through January 8th, 2026, and included 239 individuals that self-reported as they were non-citizens. The result was that 14 were at some point registered to vote, 10 of which are still qualified to vote. This represents about 5% of the 239 sampled data. 3 of them showed a voter history, and 1 of them had voted several times but has since been removed from the voter roll. Clerk Forlini.
So you can see how this number, if you take a look at it, 239 non-citizens self-reported. That came through our system. How many were in the QVF election database? 14 of this data of this selection. 3 have actually voted. 1 actually, as she said, voted multiple times. So this represents 70% of the juror candidates, so you know that that number is somewhat higher in this selection. So pay attention. 5% of these non-citizens ended up on the QVF. 5% of the non-citizens. And of that, 21% actually voted. It's pretty serious when we talk about having a clean voter roll. All these cases of the ones that voted are going to be forwarded to the proper authorities. We're working with Frank Krisha to get that over to who needs to see it. So, as many in the public suspect that non-citizens were on the voter roll, it is important for us to understand the scope of the problem as we press forward in finding a solution to this very important problem. Election accuracy, integrity, and security are our primary objective. And I just introduced you to Monica Rittner, but there's a person behind me that probably does, 2 people actually behind me that don't need introductions. One in particular is Candace Miller, who was our Secretary of State, and I'm going to have her talk a little bit about the QVF, and she has a few more things I'm sure to talk about, right?
Thanks very much, Clerk Forlini. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today, and I'm here because Tony has asked me to come in my former capacity, actually, as the Michigan Secretary of State, where I had the great honor and privilege of serving the citizens of the great state of Michigan for 8 years. A lot of people remember me as Secretary of State because of how we transformed the branch offices. But the truth is, we did the same kinds of things in the elections department, because the Secretary of State, as you all are aware, is the chief elections officer of the state of Michigan. When I first walked into the Secretary of State's office, one of the things that I thought was interesting was, and this is really because Michigan is a state where we are very focused on local control, which is great. I mean, if you went to Florida, for instance, it would be the county clerk who maintains the voter registration rolls. And that is the case in many, many states. So it's the county that does the voter registration and is the election officer. In Michigan, it is every local municipality, so every township, every city, every village. There are a little over 1,800 various local units where those clerks maintain their voter registration rolls, which is great. However, when I first became the Secretary of State, and we started looking at how some of the clerks were handling the voter registration rolls, you know, you'd find some places where there hadn't been any updates to the voter registration list for a long time. In very small communities, they were keeping them in a box under their desk. You know, these are things that were happening, and through nobody's fault. However, because the Secretary of State in Michigan has a unique situation where not only do you run the elections, you also have the motor vehicle registrations. Again, there's only 3 states in the nation where the Secretary also does the DMV. So Michigan is one of them. And so we had both of these lists, right, our databases. And so we started looking at how we could take both of these lists and sort of meld them all together to clean up the list and have a statewide qualified voter file. When you hear of the QVF, that had its genesis in the 1990s when I became the Secretary of State. It took us several years to actually do this, and it was a lot of work on behalf of all of the local clerks and the Department of the Secretary of State to do that. So we created a statewide voter registration file because you are much more likely, quite frankly, if you move, for instance, from Sterling Heights to Warren, you might not go into the city clerk of Warren and change your voter registration. But you are probably going to go to a Secretary of State's office to change your driver license address, right? So the Secretary of State is really where most of the voter registration happens, and so appropriate that they would be doing this. But at any rate, we went through the entire list, and I will never forget when we finally melded everything all together. At that time, we deduped the system. We took out all the duplicates, etc. I mean, we had one household where there was a Bob, Bobby, Robbie, Robert, all at one household. And then after that, there wasn't 4, there was only 1. And when we did this, we took out about 800,000 names off the voter registration files in the state of Michigan. So we then had really the gold standard with the qualified voter file. And that was a very, very important thing. And one other thing that we did, which I think also really helped clean up the files, is we had a lot of usually students or other people who might have, they might have dual voter registrations. And no, again, not always because, of any kind of, nefarious ideas here, but you might be a student, again, maybe you live in, Sterling Heights and you're going to MSU. And now you're registered there and you're registered up in East Lansing. Now we passed a piece of legislation when I was a secretary that said the only thing that you can do, you can only have one voter registration at wherever your driver license is. And so that, again, really cleaned up the system. So I appreciate Clerk Forlini bringing up some of these things, not just because I was a Secretary of State. As some of you know, my husband was a judge here on this circuit, on the 16th Circuit here in Macomb County for 12 years. And I remember him talking about coming in to talk to the jury pools and everything. And, it is so important that we maintain the integrity of our system, not just for voter registration, but for our jury pool. We want citizens to participate in both things. Citizens being the operative phrase there. Thank you.
Thanks, Candace. For some of that, I got a little lesson today. I think we all did. Joe Aragona, who's a state representative in Clinton and Macomb Township, is that it? Just those two? He served with me in the legislature. He was my legislative aide back in Lansing, and when he heard I was doing this, he says, "Hey, I want to come see what it's all about." So, you want to say a few words?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Clerk Forlini for bringing this forward. After seeing the data, after having some conversations with him, obviously this is a serious issue we need to look into. And if we have the clerk of the 3rd largest county in the state, as well as a former Secretary of State, showing what this data is, what this process should be, this is something that I think needs to go before our oversight committee in Lansing. As many of you know, we've had a far more robust oversight process in the House of Representatives over the last year that'll continue into the following year. We've needed to subpoena a number of elected officials. And this is something that I think needs to go before that committee to really try to investigate and to really dig down on what some of these issues are. So that's what I'll be doing, and I just want to, on behalf of the Macomb County legislators, I want to thank Clerk Forlini for his work on this. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe. as Candace said, this wasn't an easy process when she set this up. And I'm sure it's not an easy process now. But we need to bring these issues to light. We need to be able to show a light on this and say, hey, there's a problem. And so the Secretary of State offices need to verify all applications against federal databases. I think this is critically important so we know where people are going and where they're headed. I think President Trump made a proposal on that already. Particularly those that self-report with no evidence of a Social Security number before they're allowed to be summoned for jury service, as they may end up on the QBF. And I want to show you a quick slide here of what I'm talking about. If you see, this is a registration application to vote. The first question is, I am a U.S. citizen, yes or no? Now you got to understand, some people with a language barrier, yeah, I'm a citizen, I live in Clinton Township, right? They don't really maybe understand the full context of this, possibly. So they might say yes. Well, how do you prove it at that point? All that you need to do, if you look down a couple boxes, is ask for a driver's license. Maybe you don't have one. How about a Social Security number? Maybe you don't have one. Then all you need to do is check off the box, I don't have a valid Michigan-issued driver's license or a Michigan-issued state ID or Social Security number. And you're in. And you're in. That's possibly how these people have slipped through the process. There really needs to be a better system to check who these people are. Are they on the voter rolls because they're citizens? Or are they on the voter rolls because they self-check themselves in? And if they do, what's the punishment? Is there anything going on? Now, this was kind of unique what we came across here between the QVF and the jury pool data. And this really was enlightening to see how that works and to see how many people actually turned out to be on our voter rolls. And it's just a small sample. This is a very small sample. So that's what I have. We're willing to take any questions if you have any questions. Anybody? Yeah, Christine.
Do you guys have a jury questionnaire form the jurors have to fill out? I know there are similar questions on that form. Couldn't you ferret folks out when they do the form if you have one?
We do. Let me have Monica go ahead and respond. It's the jury room.
So the question is the questionnaire that the jurors are prompted to fill out to qualify themselves for the jury pool, for the jury to be served jury service. There are two questionnaires. There's a questionnaire A and B. The first questionnaire A does qualify them for jury service, and one of the questions does ask, are you a U.S. citizen? If they return a no response, then we prompt them to provide supporting documentation to prove that they are not a citizen.
Again, it's just self-reporting. It's just self-reporting. How many people, we don't know this number, are afraid to say they're not a U.S. citizen and just say yes, just so they get through the system? Because we have no way of checking.
Did you communicate with Secretary Benson before this press conference, and what was that conversation like, if so?
We did. We made a call, asked about these people that are on the system, not specifically with the secretary, but with an employee. And I think, Monica, what was the conversation like?
I did make a call to Secretary of State's office to verify procedure to remove the individuals that we did identify from the voter roll. And the response was that we're not going to touch this.
Those exact words?
Yes.
Yes.
Say a non-citizen is called for jury duty, and they're afraid to show up, what do you tell them?
Afraid to show up, or they do show up?
Either or, I guess.
Well, it's two different things, right? I mean, there are people that do not show up, and at that point, they would get a show cause if they haven't responded, typically. If they do show up, that's a problem we never addressed. We'll have to talk to Judge Biernet about that. He was alarmed when I told him what was going on. That's going to be up to the court system.
Could you or would you have the staff time to go back further? This only goes back to last September, right? So if you go back a year or two and need more date.
Well, and the reason we went back to September is we updated our jury software system to a whole new system, and so that's as far back as we go, but we are monitoring it as we go forward. I don't know if we were able to go back beyond that. It might be difficult. I don't think they want to.
I pulled spreadsheets.
Oh, okay, so are some spreadsheets. We're looking into it.
So, do you know of any non-citizens that serve on the jury?
I do not. We wouldn't know that. It's self-reporting, right? That's the problem. It's self-reporting.
Let's talk about the severity yet once again. Like, let's reiterate how serious this is.
On which level? On the jury level, if I was an attorney, I'd want to take a look at the jury pool we had if it wasn't in their favor. That's pretty serious, if you ask me. On the election level, we're forwarding for potential felony charges for those that voted that were not citizens. And that's being forwarded to our attorney, and we'll see what happens after that. Our job is to report it, not to prosecute it.
How surprised are you that this has never come up before with,
It's interesting. I brought it up to a couple clerks, and they go, "Oh my God!" The thought never occurred that you can look at those two databases, and I have the authority to look at both databases because I'm the clerk in both. And now we were able to cross-check it and say, "Wow, right?" So, when I brought up to Candace, she says, "Oh my God!" I mean, this is something that is I think very big, very big. Nobody should get through the system. Every vote matters. Every vote counts. And so, when you have people that we have found just through this system that are non-residents, think about the ones that didn't reply. They probably thought to themselves, "Well, I'm not a citizen. I don't have to serve on jury duty. I'm not even going to respond." It's probably a high number of those.
doesn't the state have any role in this, in checking?
Well, I showed you how it works.
Okay.
I showed you how it works. It really doesn't. They don't check, and that's part of the problem in the state of Michigan. There is no check by the Secretary of State's office to find if these people are on the voter rolls or that are citizens. This is something that needs to change. Self-reporting doesn't work.
I have two more questions.
Yeah.
Well, I might have extra in the future, who knows? So I apologize if I might have missed this in your presentation, but when it comes to how much power do local clerks have when it comes to cleaning up the qualified voter file, or is it all up to the Secretary of State on their level?
It's at both levels. So the Secretary of State does have a role in removing the ones that they see, but the local clerks are the ones that eventually take people off. So the 300 that we found, we sent on to the local clerks to have them removed.
Have you confirmed with them that they've removed those individuals?
We're
so
keeping
far?
an eye on it.
I know that you're here in your official formal capacity as Macomb County Clerk, but I do want to ask you, as a SOS candidate, Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist just announced that he's running for SOS. So far, you've had the highest name ID among all candidates. Now, Garland Gilchrist is in the running. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm going to say this. I'm here as the county clerk today, and I'll respond as the county clerk. Those are political questions that are for another time.
And I'd like to just jump in on Jamie's question and your question. I think absolutely the state has a role, and the Secretary of State has a role to make sure that these lists are accurate. You should be doing what you can to ensure that these lists are accurate, that, for instance, deceased are removed, that non-citizens are removed, that they're not being sent for jury pools, that they're not being put into a qualified voter file. And to be honest, I think that the response that Monica got was pretty terrible. So that's why I'll be referring this over to Chairman DeBoyer with the Oversight Committee.
You can be, if you're here and you have a green card, right, or you have a valid visa or something like that, obviously you can get a driver's license in Michigan. But again, you still have to check that you're a non-citizen. So there certainly is that as well. And the Secretary of State, I know, does work with, for instance, the Social Security Department goes to all the DMVs or all, whoever is maintaining voter registration files, et cetera. When somebody, that somebody is deceased, so they have that, and, again, I can't comment on how quickly they're doing that now. I mean, I've been out of that job for over 20 years, but there are ways that they can check, and there's some interstate various kinds of databases that you can cross-check with, certainly for vehicle registrations and those kinds of things. Driver license, right? There's driver license and that kind of thing. I don't know exactly to what extent they're doing that, but there is a lot of cross-checking that has to happen and should be happening there. It's not going to catch everything if because of this problem where you're self-reporting, but it is a way to keep clean the system.
Oh, that was something I was going to ask. When it comes to these individuals that reveal themselves being non-U.S. citizens, who were they? Were some of them here on work visas, or some of them here, did you have to reach out to federal enforcement? Who are some of these people?
Well, I think you're referring to illegals, right? But this isn't what we're talking about. We're just talking about non-citizens that are here, working, have a green card, and were summoned for jury duty. That's it. And that's what we get. We get proof from them. Again, if they're here illegally, my guess is they're not replying to us. They're just staying away.
Eric, did you have a question?
I just wanted, a couple questions are coming through about Monica. You did follow up with the Secretary of State and the department. They couldn't hear what that outcome was when you asked them to help and get the illegals off the voter records that you found, and so they won't vote or actually come for jury duty. What was the response?
The full response was that that this would need to go through local clerks, but that they would not touch it.
Thank you.
Do you know who you talked to specifically about that? Do you have a name?
I do,
Would you really disclose that?
not at this moment.
Candace, do you think it's a good thing that the locals maintain the rolls, or you said Michigan's one of the few states that does, or is it better to have the county do it?
No, I think it's fine. I think our system is fine. I'm big about local control. That probably came because I was a township supervisor at one time, but I think it's fine. And I'll tell you one thing, we have some of the best clerks anywhere, I think. And even in Macomb County here, we have some excellent clerks, local clerks, municipal clerks. And they take their role very seriously. Many of them have all kinds of certification for the jobs that they do. And I know they work very closely with the county clerk here, with Clerk Forlini. But I don't think there's anything wrong with our system. I think it can be a strong system. But I think the Secretary of State, as I say, when I came in and we had all of these individual systems, listen, technology is happening, right? It's evolving. It's evolving all the time. We can all do a better job. And having this qualified voter file really ensured that Michigan was again on the leading edge, at least at that time, because I remember there were a number of states around the nation that were tracking what we were doing, and we helped. At that time, Chris Thomas was the election director, and he really, I remember him going around and helping other states set something up similar to what we were doing here.
Tony, is this again was based off of low juror turnout or jury pool turnout, correct?
Yeah, we have weekly meetings with my management team, and we talk about the amount of work and what's going on, and I'm always trying to cut the bureaucracy out of everything we're doing, and it's happened all the way across. That's why we've won 2 national awards on operational efficiency and innovation. And so we look for more and more ways to find ways to reduce the amount of work our employees have and add value to the residents as opposed to just doing bureaucratic things behind the scene. And when we saw that there was over 200 that were coming through the qualified voter, through the jury pool, that we have to respond to, that we need to ask for proof, that somebody needs to present that proof, and we go through removing them off of the jury system. That's unnecessary work that's being done by our employees. And it's all stemming from the fact that at the very beginning of the process, it's a flawed process that's too loose. The protocols are not proper. And so things need to change, either at the legislative level or at the Secretary of State's level if they have that authority, to remove or to check every person, particularly those that don't have a social security number or a driver's license or any information. They just have a name and they say, yeah, I'm a citizen.
So what are the plans for going forward? I mean, this was a look from September through January, so what is your office going to do going forward?
So this is going to be something that's going to be ongoing. We have a specific database that, what do we call them? These people that
Your candidates. Is that what you're
jerk, it's non-permanent,
Yes, well, disqualification.
non-permanent disqualification. That's what we're calling it, non-permanent because they could become a citizen, right? At some point in time. And at that point, they could serve on a jury and they could vote. So it's non-permanent. It's a special classification we made.
There were just some cases in St. Louis Shores, you had potential voter fraud. There's been only one conviction out of 7, I think. Do you think the same charges would apply in this case? Or?
I can't comment on that. It's not my job. My job is to report it.
Who would file the charges? Is that something from the state level or the county level?
We're reporting it. We're giving it to our corporate counsel. He's going to handle it from there. He's sitting behind you, but I know he doesn't want to talk.
Not the criminal, not the civil?
It's going to go. We're going to hand it over to our corporate counsel, and it's going to go from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it, everybody. Appreciate you for coming out.